I, 22F, am at a crossroads in my life, facing a betrayal that threatens to shatter my dreams of pursuing graduate studies. It's a story of family, broken trust, and the fight for my future. Here's what's happening. I've always been the black sheep of my family, living in the shadow of my older sister, 30F, who's been the apple of our parents' eyes for as long as I can remember. Growing up, I learned to fend for myself while my sister was coddled and praised for her every achievement. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but the disparity in how we were treated was impossible to ignore. Despite the challenges at home, I excelled in my studies, driven by a passion for learning and a desire to prove myself. I recently graduated from college with honors, and my dream of pursuing a PhD in neuroscience seemed within reach. The plan was to start graduate school this fall, and I've been accepted into several prestigious programs. Here's where things take a turn for the worse. My grandparents, who passed away last year, had left me a substantial amount of money specifically for my graduate studies. It was their way of supporting my academic aspirations, knowing how much it meant to me. The fund was significant enough to cover tuition and living expenses for the duration of my PhD program, which typically takes 5 to 6 years to complete. However, last week, I discovered that my parents had been entrusted with managing this fund until I turned 23, my grandparents' stipulation, and they've completely betrayed that trust. They've drained the account, using my graduate school fund to help my sister and her boyfriend, 27M, buy a house in an upscale neighborhood. When I confronted them about it, their response left me stunned and heartbroken. My mother said, "Your sister needs this house now. You're still young, you can take out student loans or apply for scholarships like everyone else. It would be unfair for you to have an easy ride through grad school when your sister had to struggle with student loans." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The unfairness of it all hit me like a ton of bricks. My sister is a kindergarten teacher, and her boyfriend works as a zookeeper. While these are noble professions, they simply don't justify the purchase of a luxury home in an expensive area. And more importantly, how could they justify stealing my future to fund my sister's present? The argument that ensued was explosive. I yelled, I cried, I pleaded, but my parents remained unmoved. They kept insisting that I was being selfish for not wanting to help my sister, completely disregarding the fact that this money was explicitly left for my education. When I pointed out that my sister had received all of our grandmother's jewelry, which is quite valuable, in the will, they brushed it off, saying she deserved nice things. In a moment of desperation, I threatened to take legal action. That's when my father laughed in my face and said, "With what money? You can't afford a lawyer, and no one will take your case pro bono. Face it, you're powerless here." Those words cut deep. The realization of how utterly dependent I was on them, how they've always held this power over me, hit me like never before. It was a wake-up call. I needed to get out of there. In a whirlwind of emotions, I packed a bag with essentials and left. I couldn't bear to stay in that house for another minute. As I walked out the door, my mother called after me, "You're being dramatic. Where do you think you're going to go?" I didn't have an answer then. I just knew I had to leave. For the past few days, I've been crashing on my best friend's couch. She and her family have been incredibly supportive, but I know I can't stay here forever. I'm lost, scared, and angry. My dreams of graduate school seem to be slipping away, and I feel powerless to stop it. But then I remembered my uncle, my father's older brother. He's a high-ranking military officer and has always been kind to me, even if we're not super close due to the distance. In a moment of desperation, I decided to reach out to him. With shaking hands, I dialed his number, praying he would pick up. When he answered, I broke down, sobbing as I explained the situation. To my relief, he listened patiently, letting me get it all out. When I finished, there was a moment of silence that felt like an eternity. Then, his calm, steady voice came through the phone. "I'm sorry you're going through this, kiddo. What your parents did is not okay. Don't worry, I'll help you sort this out." Those words were like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a glimmer of hope. My uncle asked for some time to look into the legal aspects and promised to call me back soon. As I hung up the phone, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that someone was finally on my side, willing to help me fight this injustice. But anxiety about what would come next. Taking on my parents legally seemed daunting, and I worried about the toll it would take on our already strained relationship. But then I thought about my dreams, my hard work, and the faith my grandparents had placed in me. I realized that this wasn't just about the money, it was about standing up for myself and the future I've worked so hard for. I'm at a crossroads now, waiting for my uncle's call, unsure of what the future holds. Will I be able to reclaim my graduate school fund? Can I repair the relationship with my parents, or is this the final straw? How will this affect my relationship with my sister, who's caught in the middle of this mess? As I sit here on my friend's couch, staring at my phone and willing it to ring, I can't help but feel that my entire future hangs in the balance. Whatever happens next will shape the course of my life, and I'm terrified but determined to fight for what's rightfully mine. I know this is a long and complicated situation, and I'm grateful if you've read this far. I guess I'm looking for advice, support, or maybe just a place to vent. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How did you handle it? And most importantly, am I wrong for wanting to take legal action against my own parents? This whole ordeal has me questioning everything: my relationship with my family, my place in the world, and my ability to stand up for myself. But one thing is clear: I can't let them steal my future without a fight. Update 1. It's been a week since I reached out to my uncle, and a lot has happened. I'm still processing everything, but I wanted to update you all on the situation. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and advice have been incredibly helpful during this difficult time. I've read every comment, and while I haven't been able to respond to all of them, please know that your words have given me strength. Now, onto the updates. My uncle, true to his word, has been an absolute godsend. The day after our phone call, he flew in to meet with me in person. Seeing him at the airport, looking every bit the commanding officer in his uniform, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. He gave me a big hug and said, "We're going to fix this, kiddo." The first thing he did was connect me with a lawyer friend of his who specializes in estate law. We had a long meeting where I explained everything in detail. The lawyer was outraged by what my parents had done and assured me that we had a strong case. Apparently, what my parents did is called misappropriation of funds and is very much illegal. We've started the legal process to recover the money. It's complicated and a bit overwhelming, but my uncle and the lawyer are handling most of it. They've sent a formal letter to my parents demanding the return of the funds. We're giving them a chance to return the money before we file an official lawsuit. The next big news is that I've moved out of my friend's place. My uncle, being the incredible person he is, has found me a small apartment near the university where I hope to start my PhD. He's covering the rent for now, saying it's an investment in my future. I tried to refuse, but he insisted, saying, "This is what family should do for each other." The apartment is small but cozy, and more importantly, it's mine. For the first time in my life, I have a space that's truly my own, away from the drama and tension of my parents' house. It's been both liberating and terrifying. I've never lived completely on my own before, and while it's scary, it also feels like a step towards independence. My uncle also helped me get a part-time job at a local research lab. It's not much, but it'll help me cover groceries and other expenses. Plus, it's great experience for my future studies. Between the new apartment, the job, and the ongoing legal process, I feel like I'm finally taking control of my life. Now, here's where things get complicated again. Yesterday, I received a call from my parents. It was the first time we've spoken since I left. They sounded different. Subdued, even. They said they wanted to work things out and asked if we could meet to talk. My father said, "We've been thinking about what we did, and we realize we made a mistake. We want to make it right." My mother chimed in, "We miss you, sweetie. Can't we just sit down and figure this out as a family?" Part of me wanted to scream at them, to ask where this understanding was when I was begging them not to take my future away. But another part of me, a part I'm not proud of, felt a glimmer of hope. Despite everything, they're still my parents. I told them I'd think about it and hung up. I immediately called my uncle for advice. He listened patiently and then said, "Remember, you're in control now. If you decide to meet them, do it on your terms. And don't agree to anything without consulting the lawyer first." I'm torn about what to do. On one hand, I'm still incredibly hurt and angry about what they did. The legal process is underway, and part of me wants to see it through, to make them face consequences for their actions. On the other hand, the idea of reconciling with my family is tempting. I miss my sister, and despite everything, a small part of me misses my parents too. But I'm worried. What if this is just another manipulation? What if they're only reaching out because they received the lawyer's letter and are trying to avoid legal consequences? Can I trust them after what they've done? I haven't decided yet whether I'll meet with them. For now, I'm focusing on settling into my new apartment and job. It's strange how much my life has changed in just a week. I'm scared about the future, but also excited. For the first time, I feel like I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I'm still processing all of these changes, and I'm not sure what my next move should be. Should I meet with my parents? Try to work things out? Or should I keep my distance and let the legal process play out? Any advice would be appreciated. Thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know. Update 2. Hey everyone, it's been 2 weeks since my last update, and a lot has happened. I want to thank you all again for your support and advice. It's been incredibly helpful during this challenging time. First, let me address the biggest development. We've started the mediation process with my parents. After much consideration and discussion with my uncle and the lawyer, I decided to give mediation a chance before proceeding with a full-blown lawsuit. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt it was worth trying to resolve this without dragging it through the courts if possible. The first mediation session was intense, to say the least. We met at a neutral location with a professional mediator. My parents were there with their lawyer, and I had my uncle and our lawyer with me. Walking into that room and seeing my parents for the first time in weeks was harder than I expected. My mom looked like she hadn't slept in days, and my dad couldn't even meet my eyes at first. The mediator did a good job of keeping things civil, but there were still some heated moments. My parents tried to justify their actions again, saying they thought they were doing what was best for the family. I managed to keep my cool, mostly, and explained how their actions had affected me and my future plans. To my surprise, as the session progressed, my parents seemed to really listen for the first time. There was a moment when my mom broke down crying, saying, "We never meant to hurt you. We just didn't think it through." It was hard to see, and part of me wanted to comfort her, but I reminded myself why we were there. By the end of the session, we hadn't reached an agreement, but my parents seemed to understand the gravity of what they'd done. They've agreed to consider returning the funds, but they're worried about how it will affect my sister's house purchase. We've scheduled another session for next week. It's progress, but we're not out of the woods yet. Speaking of my sister, that brings me to the next big update. A few days after the mediation session, my sister reached out to me. I was hesitant to talk to her at first, but I decided to hear her out. We met for coffee, and it was eye-opening. It turns out, my sister had no idea that the money our parents gave her for the house was from my graduate school fund. She was horrified when she found out. "I never would have accepted it if I knew," she told me, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, sis. I feel awful." We had a long, honest conversation about our relationship and our parents' treatment of us over the years. My sister admitted that she had always felt the pressure of being the golden child and how it had affected her own choices in life. She confessed that she envied my academic achievements and my courage to pursue my dreams. It was a breakthrough moment for us. For the first time, I felt like we truly understood each other. She's offered to sell some of the jewelry she inherited from our grandmother to help repay the fund. I told her it wasn't necessary, but I appreciate the gesture more than I can say. This conversation with my sister has given me a new perspective on our family dynamics. It's made me realize that she's been affected by our parents' behavior too, just in a different way. We've promised to stay in touch and support each other moving forward. Amidst all this family drama, I've been trying to stay focused on my goal, graduate school. I've been studying hard for the GRE, graduate record examinations, and working on my application essays. It's been a welcome distraction from everything else going on. My part-time job at the research lab has been incredibly helpful. Not only is it providing me with some financial independence, but it's also giving me valuable experience for my grad school applications. My supervisor has even offered to write me a letter of recommendation, which is fantastic. I've also been reaching out to potential advisors at the universities I'm interested in. It's been nerve-wracking, but also exciting. I had a great video call with a professor whose work I admire, and she seemed interested in my research ideas. It's moments like these that remind me why I'm fighting so hard for this opportunity. My uncle checks in on me regularly, and his support continues to be a lifeline. He's been helping me navigate the legal aspects of everything and offering advice on grad school applications. "You're handling this with grace and maturity," he told me recently. "I'm proud of you, kiddo." His words mean more to me than he probably realizes. As for my living situation, I'm settling into my apartment. It's still strange living on my own, but I'm getting used to it. I've even started to enjoy the independence. My best friend helped me decorate a bit, and it's starting to feel like home. Looking ahead, I'm cautiously optimistic. The next mediation session is coming up, and I'm hoping we can make more progress towards resolving the financial issue. I'm also planning to submit my first grad school application next month, which feels both exciting and terrifying. I still have moments of doubt and fear. There are nights when I lie awake wondering if I'm doing the right thing, if I should just let it all go for the sake of family peace. But then I remember how hard I've worked, how much I've dreamed of this opportunity, and I know I have to keep fighting. Thank you all for listening and for your continued support. It means the world to me. I'll update you again after the next mediation session. Wish me luck. Update 3. Hello everyone. It's been about a month and a half since my last update, and I'm still reeling from everything that's happened. I want to thank you all again for your continued support and advice throughout this ordeal. Your words have been a source of strength for me. The biggest news is that my parents have finally agreed to return the funds. It happened during our third mediation session last week. The atmosphere was tense as we sat down, but something felt different this time. My parents seemed deflated, almost. As the mediator began the session, my father suddenly spoke up. "We've made a decision," he said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. "We're going to return the money. All of it." I was stunned. I looked at my uncle, who squeezed my hand reassuringly. My mother, her eyes red-rimmed, added, "We realize now how much we've hurt you. We never meant for it to go this far." It turns out that the legal pressure, combined with my sister's insistence, she had apparently been pushing them hard since our talk, finally made them see reason. They've already started the process of transferring the funds back into the trust account. I felt a rush of emotions: relief, vindication, but also a strange sense of sadness. This was a victory, but it came at a cost. After the formal part of the mediation was over, my parents asked to speak with me privately. Against my better judgment, I agreed. What followed was one of the most emotionally charged conversations of my life. My father began, "We owe you an apology. A big one. We've been unfair to you for a long time, and we didn't even realize it." My mother chimed in, tears in her eyes, "We always thought we were doing what was best, but we see now how wrong we were. Can you ever forgive us?" I didn't know how to respond at first. Part of me wanted to lash out, to make them feel the pain and betrayal I've been carrying. But seeing them like this, vulnerable, remorseful, I realized that they were hurting too. "I don't know," I finally said. "I'm glad you're returning the money, but this isn't just about that. It's about years of feeling like I didn't matter as much as my sister. It's about you being willing to sacrifice my future for hers without a second thought. That's not something I can just forgive overnight." They nodded, understanding dawning in their eyes. My father said, "We know we have a lot to make up for. We're willing to work on it, if you'll let us. We want to be better parents to you." We talked for a long time after that. There were tears, raised voices, and moments of painful silence. But for the first time in my life, I felt like they were really listening to me. We didn't resolve everything, there's too much history for that, but it felt like a start. As for my relationship with my sister, it's been improving. She's been incredibly supportive throughout this process, even offering to postpone her house purchase to ensure the funds were returned quickly. I told her that wasn't necessary, but her offer meant a lot to me. We've been talking more regularly, sharing things we never did before. She confided in me about her own struggles with our parents' expectations, and I've been opening up to her about my fears and hopes for grad school. It feels like we're finally becoming the sisters we should have been all along. Speaking of grad school, that brings me to the last major update. My future plans are becoming clearer. With the assurance that I'll have the funds for my education, I've been able to focus fully on my applications. I've submitted applications to 5 top programs in neuroscience, including my dream school. I had another call with the professor I mentioned in my last update. We discussed my research interests in depth, and she encouraged me to apply to her lab. Your passion and resilience are exactly what we look for in our PhD candidates, she said. Her words gave me a much-needed boost of confidence. My part-time job at the research lab continues to be a great experience. I've even co-authored a paper that's being submitted for publication. My supervisor says this will significantly strengthen my grad school applications. As for my living situation, I've decided to stay in my apartment for now. My uncle offered to let me move in with him and his wife, but I feel like I need this independence. I'm learning to cook, with varying degrees of success, managing my own finances, and generally enjoying having my own space. Looking ahead, I'm cautiously optimistic. The grad school application process is stressful, but I feel well prepared. I should start hearing back from schools in a few months. My relationship with my parents is still fragile. We've agreed to start family therapy to work through our issues. It's going to be a long process, but I'm willing to try. I'm not ready to fully trust them yet, but I'm open to the possibility of rebuilding our relationship. This whole experience has taught me so much about standing up for myself, about the complexities of family relationships, and about my own strength. There were moments when I wanted to give up, when the fight seemed too hard. But I persevered, and I'm proud of that. I'm nervous about the future, but also excited. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my life and my choices. Whatever happens with grad school, I know I'll face it head-on. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable. I'll update you again when I hear back from grad schools. Update 4. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last update, and I can't believe how much has changed. I want to start by thanking all of you who have followed my story and offered support and advice along the way. Your kindness has meant more to me than I can express. So, here's the big news. I got into grad school. Not just any grad school, but my dream program. I'll be starting my PhD in neuroscience this fall at one of the top universities in the country. I'm still pinching myself to make sure it's real. But wait, it gets better. I also received a full scholarship. The funding covers tuition, fees, and provides a stipend for living expenses. When I got the email, I literally screamed so loud that my neighbor came to check if I was okay. I couldn't stop crying happy tears this time. The scholarship is a huge relief. Even though my parents returned the money my grandparents left for my education, I was worried about the long-term financial burden of a PhD program. Now, I can focus entirely on my studies without that stress hanging over me. I called my uncle first with the news. He was over the moon, saying, "I knew you could do it, kiddo. Your grandparents would be so proud." We had a long talk about what this means for my future, and he offered some great advice about navigating academic life. Telling my parents was complicated. I decided to do it in person, so I went to their house for dinner. When I told them, my mom burst into tears, happy ones, she assured me, and my dad actually hugged me, something he hasn't done in years. "We are so proud of you," my dad said, his voice thick with emotion. "And we're sorry again for almost jeopardizing this opportunity for you." It was a bittersweet moment. I'm still working on fully forgiving them, but seeing their genuine happiness for me was a big step in healing our relationship. My sister's reaction was the best. She screamed almost as loud as I did when I told her over the phone. "My little sister, the future Dr. Brainiac," she teased. She's already planning to visit me once I'm settled in my new city. Speaking of which, I'm in the middle of preparing for the big move. It's exciting and terrifying all at once. I'll be moving across the country, leaving behind everything familiar. But I'm ready for this new adventure. My new apartment is tiny but close to campus. I've been slowly accumulating things I'll need: a good desk lamp, comfortable bedding, way too many highlighters. My uncle and aunt have been incredibly generous, helping me with some of the moving expenses. Consider it a graduation gift, my aunt insisted. I've also been in touch with my future advisor, the professor I mentioned in previous updates. She's already sent me some papers to read and suggested I start thinking about potential research projects. It's intimidating, but also thrilling to be taken seriously as a researcher. As for my family relationships, we're still working on it. The family therapy sessions have been tough but helpful. We're learning to communicate better and understand each other's perspectives. It's a slow process, but I'm seeing progress. My parents have been making efforts to show they support my choices. They've asked questions about my research interests and even tried to read some of the papers I've worked on, though I think some of the scientific jargon went over their heads. It's awkward sometimes, but I appreciate that they're trying. My relationship with my sister has continued to improve. We've become each other's confidants in a way we never were before. She's been my rock through this whole process, offering encouragement when I doubt myself and celebrating every small victory with me. Last week, my whole family helped me pack up my apartment. As we were sorting through my things, we found old photo albums and school projects. It led to a lot of reminiscing, both good and bad. There were some tense moments, but also a lot of laughter. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were a real family. My mom pulled me aside at one point and said, "I know we can't undo the past, but I want you to know how sorry we are for not supporting you the way we should have. We're going to do better." I'm not naive enough to think that everything is perfect now. We still have a lot of work to do as a family. But I'm hopeful in a way I haven't been in years. As I prepare for this new chapter in my life, I've been reflecting on everything that's happened over the past few months. It's been a roller coaster of emotions: anger, disappointment, fear, and now, finally, excitement and hope. I've learned so much about myself through this experience. I've discovered a strength I didn't know I had. I've learned to stand up for myself, to fight for what I believe in, and to not let anyone, not even family, deter me from my dreams. I'm nervous about starting grad school, about living in a new city, about the challenges that lie ahead. But I'm also incredibly excited. This is what I've been working towards for so long, and it's finally happening. To anyone out there facing similar family struggles or fighting for their dreams, don't give up. It's not easy, and there will be times when you want to throw in the towel. But you're stronger than you know. Keep pushing, keep fighting for what you believe in. It's worth it. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Your kind words and advice have been a source of strength and comfort. I may not post updates as frequently once I start grad school, but I'll try to check in from time to time. Wish me luck as I embark on this new adventure. Here's to new beginnings and the pursuit of dreams.